The Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, the 16th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Then Jesus said to the disciples, "There was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was squandering his property. So he summoned him and said to him, 'What is this I hear about you? Give me an accounting of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer.' Then the manager said to himself, 'What will I do now that my master is taking the position away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I've decided what to do so that when I am dismissed as manager, people may welcome me into their homes.' So, summoning his master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' He answered, 100 jugs of olive oil. He said to him, 'Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 50. Then he asked another, 'And how much do you owe?' He replied, 100 containers of wheat. He said to him, 'Take your bill and make it 80. And his master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. And I tell you, make friends for yourself by means of dishonest wealth, so that when it is gone, they may welcome you into the eternal homes. Whoever is faithful in very little is also faithful in much, and whoever is dishonest in very little is dishonest also in much. If then you have not been faithful with the dishonest wealth, who will entrust you with the true riches? And if you've not been faithful in what belongs to another, who will give you what is your own? No slave can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
You may be seated. So, I've got a question for you. Is it good to be shrewd? If somebody tells you that you're shrewd, do you thank them? Or do you slink away quietly and ask yourself, "Gee, what did I do to deserve that?" I guess it depends on the circumstances and perhaps which side of the circumstances you're on. When I posted that question, "Is it good to be shrewd?" on Facebook, my stepson Christopher, who's a Lutheran Church Missouri Synod pastor, responded, "Not if you're Elizabeth Taylor." Not exactly sure what he meant about that, because actually, if you think about it, things worked out pretty well for Liz after her second divorce from Richard Burton. She ended up with a 33-carat diamond, a pearl that was once owned by Mary I of England, some Picassos, some Monets, private jets, yachts, furs, and who knows what else. Evidently, Richard Burton's lawyer wasn't shrewd enough. The quality of being shrewd is usually seen as a good thing in business deals. But what about in the Bible? The book of Proverbs consistently commends shrewdness as a positive quality. Take Proverbs 14:18, for example. It says, "The inexperienced inherit foolishness, but the shrewd possess knowledge as a valuable adornment." In Matthew 10:16, Jesus instructs his disciples to be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves, highlighting the need for both practical wisdom and purity of heart. And in today's gospel lesson, Jesus tells us the parable of the shrewd manager. At first glance, his shrewdness doesn't seem like a good quality. A rich man has this manager handling his affairs, but he finds out the guy's squandering his property, and he gives him his walking papers. Well, the guy sees the writing on the wall. He's fired. What's he going to do? How's he going to make a living? He can't or won't do physical labor, but he's too proud to beg. So he comes up with this exit strategy. Before turning over the books to his soon-to-be ex-boss, He goes to his boss's customers. Psst, have I got a deal for you? How much do you owe my master? The first one says 100 jugs of olive oil. Well, the guy says, tell you what I'm going to do. Let's cross that out and say 50. The next guy owes 100 containers of wheat, and the manager marks that down to 80. The wheels in his brain are turning. These folks are going to remember I was good to them when I'm on the streets. They'll take care of me because I took care of them. Of course, this gets back to the master. You'd think he'd be mad, but he actually commends the man for being shrewd. So does this mean that Jesus, who's telling the parable, condones dishonesty? Kind of sounds that way. I can imagine being in the room when Jesus tells one of his parables. He gets to the end of the story and he's facing blank stares from his disciples. Like Arnold in that 1970s sitcom Different Strokes, I could hear them asking, "What you talking about, Jesus?" As I researched this parable, I found many different interpretations. Several folks with much more biblical knowledge than me said it was one of the most confusing of Jesus' parables. Of course, that would be the Sunday that I volunteered to preach. Among what I found was a sermon that John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist Church, gave on this parable. And it was really long, by the way. But as I waded through his 18th century English, ironically, I began to see the parable more clearly. Wesley pointed out that God put each of us here on earth for a season with goods of various kinds. He made us stewards, not proprietors, not owners, because all that we have is his. First, God gives us things, food to eat, clothing to wear, whatever we need to be healthy and strong. And after we share that with our family members, if there's anything remaining, in Wesley's words, you have the opportunity to do good unto all men. After addressing the things, Wesley talked about money. As it says in 1 Timothy, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evils. Wesley points out that it's not money itself that's the problem, it's the love of money, or what we do with it. Wesley says there are 3 things we can do. Gain as much as we can without hurting ourselves or our neighbors in body or soul. 2, save all we can. And then 3, finally, give all that we can. Or in Wesley's words, give all you have to God. Render unto God not a tenth, not a third, not half, but all that is God's, be it more or less, by employing all on yourself, your household of faith, and all mankind. That, my friends, is being shrewd, but being shrewd for good. Jesus tells his disciples how to be this kind of shrewd as he explains the parable. That was another point that was a little confusing to me, especially in the translation we have on our celebrate. In verse 9, Jesus instructs his disciples to make friends for themselves by means of dishonest wealth. Then the Lutheran Study Bible calls it unrighteous wealth. The Good News Bible, which is what I use for my daily devotions, refers to it as worldly wealth. But I suppose the bottom line is that Jesus is saying to use that wealth for good here on earth. It's not ours, it's God's. He's trusting us to be faithful with it so that when our time here is done, he can trust us with the true riches, which is everlasting life. So, how do we use God's wealth in this life? Again, as I was doing my research, I ran across a story about author Stephen King that I found very interesting. Whether he knew it or not, he could have been preaching on the parable of the shrewd manager when he gave a speech to the graduates at Vassar College. It was sometime after the accident that nearly took his life in 1999. So here's what he had to say. I found out what you can't take it with you means. I found out while I was lying in the ditch at the side of a country road covered with mud and blood and with the tibia of my right leg poking out the side of my jeans like a branch of a tree taken down in a thunderstorm. I had a MasterCard in my wallet, But when you're lying in a ditch with broken glass in your hair, no one accepts MasterCard. We all know that life is ephemeral. But on that particular day, and in the months that followed, I got a painful but extremely valuable look at life's simple backstage truths. We come in naked and broke. We may be dressed up when we go out, but we're just as broke. Warren Buffett is going to go out broke. Bill Gates is going out broke. Tom Hanks is going out broke. Steve King, broke. Not a crying dime. All the money you earn, all the stocks you buy, all the mutual funds you trade, all of that is mostly smoke and mirrors. So I want you to consider making your life one long gift to others. And why not? All you have is on loan anyway. All that lasts is what you pass on. We have the power to help, the power to change. And why should we refuse? Because we're going to take it with us? Oh, please. Right now, we have the power to do great for others. So I ask you to begin giving and to continue as you began. I think you'll find in the end that you got far more than you ever had and did more good than you ever dreamed. So, my friends, I ask you today, what's the next step for you? Will you be a shrewd Christian? It's not necessarily a bad thing. Amen.